At the Academy for Offensive Mages, everyone agrees on one thing. There's no place for healers here. But our MC believes differently. Will is the best healer around, yet he still enrolls in this academy. Everyone expects him to fail badly. One teacher even decides to show it by setting up a mock combat. The moment the combat starts, the teacher employs earth magic to capture Will. But Will quickly dodges every strike, enhancing his speed with healing magic. The teacher almost gets him in an earth trap, but Will dodges again. Then he goes on the offensive. He closes the distance and strikes with his dagger. Of course, the attack doesn't work. The teacher covers himself in impenetrable earth armor, sure that a weak healer with no offensive magic can't hit him. But Will understands how to cope with it. In this universe, most magicians limit their power because their bodies can't handle their full strength. Pushing past that limit causes the body to break down. But if Will removes that restriction, he can release immense power at the cost of destroying his own body. And that's completely okay with him. He's a healer regardless. Will rushes forward with a supercharged fist. His arms fracture as he crashes clean through the teacher's earth armor. The teacher doesn't even have time to react. He's knocked out instantly. So why is a healer in this academy? Because last time, everyone else was useless, and Will died because of it. Here's what occurred back then. You would assume that being good in a job would earn you the respect you deserve from your seniors, right? Well, that's not the case with our boy. He physically gets stabbed by his supervisor for performing an amazing job. Will is an average young man with an exceptional healing skill, a one-of-a-kind power that only he possesses in the entire globe. He could literally heal even the ghastliest injuries like it was child's play. Lost your arm? No huge deal. Bro can erect it back up from the stump within seconds. Currently, he is serving alongside the last remaining soldiers on the front lines, who are fighting against a demonic army led by demon lords, the very forces responsible for ravaging the kingdom of Granbald. The soldiers are battling tooth and nail, trying their absolute best to repel the demonic forces which have destroyed the rest of the earth already. As for our lad, he has no war experience, therefore he is tasked with mending the injured, practically dragging them back from the point of death. But let's be genuine. These mortals don't have a chance against terrible beasts that have erupted from the depths of hell itself. That's why the soldiers keep returning with missing limbs, and our guy continues to repair them meticulously. Eventually, however, the warriors become bored of battling over and over, just to get injured again. They have embraced their terrible reality. They are cooked. They would rather die on the battlefield and get over this nonsense already. That's exactly the reason our youngster was stabbed by his commander. The captain believes that Will doesn't understand the grief and misery the soldiers face every time they are compelled to return to the battlefield. Ultimately, the despondent troops quit the defensive line, allowing the huge monsters to begin devouring the remnants of the realm. Will watches helplessly as everyone dies before his very eyes, witnessing his house break apart. Gazing up at that gigantic dragon, he finally understood the kind of terror those troops had been suffering through. It was in that instant that his greatest strength became his biggest regret. If only he had what it required to fight on the battlefield, he could have ensured the survival of the people around him. With a deep urge to defend his kingdom with his own two hands, Bro picks a real pebble from the ground and begins charging at the dragon. Of course, his stupid attempt to combat a great dragon with a small stone results in his destruction. However, predictably, he wakes up roughly 5 years in the past, right before he won the reputation of the world's greatest healer, a status he later came to detest. Determined not to repeat his past regrets, he decides to enroll in an academy that focuses on offensive magic rather than healing, and his initial pick for the institute is Schwartz Academy, a school dedicated only to combat techniques. In this universe, the arts of healing and the art of wielding offensive magic can't coexist side by side, forcing the new mages to pick one career exclusively. However, Will chooses to breach this unspoken rule and achieve what he failed in his prior life. He plans to wield his prior knowledge in an effort to nurture himself in a way that not only he knows how to heal, but also understands how to fight by himself. To get the ball rolling, he must enroll at one of the most prominent academies this world has to offer, the Schwartz Academia. It's said that this academy can foster youthful talent into first-class offensive magic-wielding mages. Not to mention, the most gifted combat mage in Will's prior existence was also a graduate of this academy. However, there is a problem. Will is a healing wizard, so getting into Schwartz wouldn't be trivial. Usually lords spend a fortune to have their dim-witted offspring enrolled in this academy, but our boy is now destitute. Even if he starts earning his bread and butter utilizing his medical skills, he won't be able to save enough before the registration deadline arrives. As he ponders his position, his sister enters the room. Seeing her alive causes his eyes to brim up with tears. Noticing his reaction, she figures his stomach must be aching for him to tear up like that. He hastily wipes off the sweat and bluffs, stating something only hurt his eye. Internally, however, he can scarcely control the excitement of seeing his sister alive. He swears to shield her this time from the calamity that engulfed her life previously. And not only her, he's going to make sure to safeguard everyone he failed to save previously. Suddenly his head ignites with an idea. He seems to have found out his next step forward. But before we start, here is a little backstory concerning the Magic Academy Federation. It's an agency that governs all magic academies existing in the kingdom, responsible for dishing out regulations and curriculum for all magical schooling. At current time, the chairman of the Federation is also the principal of Schwartz Academy. But for some reason, the chairman has entirely ceased paying attention to the Federation. Soon the cause became evident. It was owing to his sick granddaughter, Marie. By the way, this doting grandpa's name is Arnolm Goldgran, the chairman of the Magic Academy Federation and principal of Schwartz Academy. The elderly father told his girl that he would find a capable healing magician who could set her free from her pain. However, in our boy's previous life, his granddaughter went away because the chairman failed to find a qualified magician in time. That's exactly why my guy slips right into the chairman's granddaughter's room. Conveniently enough, our boy doesn't even have to introduce himself to the chairman, who is already present there. The old man already knows about the scholarship student who hails from Heilig. After all, Will is famous across the realm for the remarkable aptitude he possesses in healing magic. This is exactly why the chairman feels it unfitting for someone of our boy's quality to be sneaking around like a burglar. Internally, Will admits he's right. Perhaps if it weren't for his past life experience, he wouldn't have ventured to infiltrate someone's personal space. But then again, formalities are a luxury they can't afford just now. He had to get right in, for only he can heal her. Of course, the old man knows that nothing comes without a price, and he wants this young shooter to be explicit about his intentions. Will insists that time is of the essence. Her care takes precedence over negotiations. Eventually, the old guy gives the authorization our boy needs. He sits by the bedside, ready to cure her ailment. But the elderly man's penetrating gaze draws his attention, peering down into our boy's soul. The chairman is essentially broadcasting that one false move and our lad is done for. So Will takes a big breath, ready not to mess up, and starts his healing magic. While he is dealing out this healing power, he discovers that his mana pool has reduced compared to his prior life. But what matters more is the exact implementation of the healing magic formulas, which happily he remembers quite perfectly. After a while, the granddaughter eventually opens her eyes. The first thing she notices is the charming prince who rescued her from a life-or-death scenario. She feels very flustered and turns over to the other side in embarrassment. Meanwhile, Grandpa is still in disbelief that his grandchild has genuinely returned from a vegetative state. The girl affirms her return. She even adds that she hasn't felt this fantastic in years. The doting grandpa's eyes wet up with tears of delight. The fears that had been weighing him down for so long had finally been lifted. And it's all thanks to our boy. A few while later, both men settle down in the living room. After expressing suitable gratitude, the old man is eager to grant any hope our boy holds. Will tells him that he won't be demanding anything crazy. His wish is well within the chairman's power. At this time, it's general knowledge that there is no one next to Will when it comes to healing magic. He sits at the peak, having no more potential for advancement. That's exactly why he wants to explore a different skill set. He wants to enroll in Schwartz Academy. Of course, the old man considers this ludicrous. For someone to forego their innate aptitude to investigate something wholly unexpected sounds strange. But since the old man has already made his commitment, he's going to honor it. He shakes hands with the young man, pledging to keep his half of the contract. Somewhere in the academy, a supposedly toxic teacher is reviewing our boy's enrollment profile. He believes the chairman's actions to be quite daring, enrolling a healing wizard who has zero offensive talents into a combat school. Eventually, the day of the admission ceremony arrives, and the new entrants gather in the academy's assembly hall. Up on the pedestal, the chairman is there to pitch and glaze his institute. Schwartz Academy is a fully residential school focusing on offensive magic with its own unique curriculum. Its enormous campus has several training grounds, and things only get better with the latest research facilities and a massive library, making it stand out even more. Influential graduates are engaged even beyond the institution, making it possible to get various sorts of support from the kingdom. If I were to sum it up, there is no other institute that gives this kind of environment to study the intricacies of offensive magic. Let's not forget that our lad is simply an ordinary healer enrolling at this academy, which has been unparalleled up until now. So it goes without saying that his route ahead will be paved with thorns. But my boy is ready to face whatever lies ahead, as long as he becomes the offensive mage he aspires to be. However, reality is often distant from expectation. The first class after the entry ceremony takes place, and Will can be seen sweating bullets. He is meant to hit a target with a fire magic spell. Somehow, he manages to trigger a fire spell, but it fizzles out as soon as it appears. And it's not the first time this has happened. To make matters worse, his instructor is a horrible piece of trash who attempts to abuse our son by using his vulnerability as leverage. Will can only attend the class if he successfully manages to hit the dummy. Until he manages to achieve this, he is compelled to continue his practice on the training grounds on the other side of the school building. Will insists that his teacher at least show him the ropes, as else he would never be able to learn it correctly. Then again, it was evident from the start that this particular teacher has a hatred boner for our son. To him, wasting time teaching a healer isn't the wisest investment. Will begs him to at least allow him access to the library so that he can learn something from the theory. Once again, the bastard humiliates our lad for being a mere healer, alleging they had no literature that might be used by his sort. Taking advantage of the circumstance, a blonde douchebag strikes down the healer with clever magical backshots, forcing Will to collapse on the ground. The poor guy didn't even expect the abrupt onslaught, but the bully feels it's just more of a justification to take advantage of the healer for being so weak. He possesses the academy's offensive level status, so any softy healers like Will can get lost for daring to take admission. This is the first time I'm watching a teacher gang up on the student with the bully too. Both of them dogwalk Will, as if he were the lowest trash in their sights. That night, our child appears fatigued beside the bench. His efforts for studying offensive magic has so far ended in the gutter. He knew it would be a pain in the ass just because of the disparity between healing and offensive magic. Both draw their own form of energy source. Mana is the power of the mind, a mage's ultimate weapon, which he unleashes through formulas. Mana also moves according to the desire of the caster. Employing that mana for explosion or firepower offers you offensive magic. Healers, on the other hand, possess tranquil mana, but that's where the Schwartz Academy enters into play. They're the finest at creating offensive mages, thus there has to be a way for him to refine dynamic mana. Will passionately believes that he could control his mana in a way that could convert static mana into dynamic mana. The biggest impediment in his way? He can't even attend courses right now since the lousy teacher won't allow him. Will refuses to quit up, hoping to encounter that one person who helped him in his past life. Just because of her alone, his choice to having come to this academy may wind up being worth the suffering. Unfortunately, he can't continue blindly, so he thinks of other ways. But suddenly, a familiar voice challenges him for remaining out late. When Will looks at this person's lovely beauty, he envisions Veronica, a highly competent warrior who battled with him. She was one of the finest level offensive mages he ever met, and in the end, he had to grieve her loss in the awful conflict. Luckily, she's alive in this regressed timeline. But before they could even communicate, this woman takes out the same blade that can cleave anything in half. This girl appears like a female Gojo with Sukuna's skills. The fact that she's pointing her sword at him isn't exactly nice, but it turns out she's tracking down a suspicious student around school, making her worry whether Will is that same difficult student. Our son swiftly adds that he's absolutely not that guy, since on the odd occasion she swings at him, he's gonna need another isekai regression from Truck-kun again. She believes him, bringing him calm, and he begs to confirm whether she's truly Veronica. The woman feels upset that he greets teachers so casually, giving him shame and shock. He knew that she was older than him in his former existence, but not that much older. Turns out, she's actually a prodigy who skipped grades and got promoted to a professor right immediately, which is entirely unsurprising considering her god-tier brilliance. This is the opportunity that Will has been waiting for, the shooting star that could enable him learn offensive magic at last. Will displays interest in taking Veronica's class, knowing that she's his one last hope. He inquires about the enrollment method, but she promptly rejects him, indicating that she doesn't have any classes initiated. Since she's a new teacher who previously got promoted from various classes, she has no knowledge of how things work here. For this year, Veronica's present position is to serve as an assistant instructor to handle various questions. The aim was to leverage her youthful intellect to connect with the pupils closer to her age, which would make her a fantastic support for them. However, what annoys her is how no one dares to approach her for any kind of consultation. Well, our boy can immediately understand why. It's because this woman takes out her murder weapon at the smallest inconvenience. But from his point of view, this is just an amazing chance for him to exploit Veronica. He doesn't even have to take her classes, and may simply utilize her to instruct him privately. So he asks her a question, knowing it's her responsibility to answer. Being candid right away, this man inquires how he should approach learning offensive magic as a healer. From his statements, Veronica promptly knows that he's not a regular student, having sensed his unique mana flow composition. She now remembers that this guy is the famed freshman who joined the Schwartz Academy. In all her years, she even acknowledges never seeing a typical healer trying to study offensive magic. The good thing about Schwartz is that the academy gives a means to generate something called dynamic mana. It's a foundation that our boy believes will serve him as the perfect start, and when Veronica confirms its existence, Will gets incredibly enthusiastic, thinking that there's a shot. One tiny problem. This woman straight up informs him that his stupid won't be able to master offensive magic, even with that way. This information actually astonishes our youngster, especially when Veronica emphasizes that he already has far too much static mana. This means that even if he fosters dynamic mana from the ground up, most of it will transform and disintegrate into static mana regardless. And if he tried to nurture dynamic mana by some other way, the mingling of two mana types will make it impossible for him to utilize any kind of offensive magic. Reality looks dismal. Bro went ahead and changed academies just to realize that there's virtually no way for a regular healer to learn offensive magic. Will is starting to regret not obtaining an instruction manual when Truck-kun regressed his ass. Well, he doesn't want to give up, even if it requires becoming the Einstein of his generation to design a new approach. Thanking the assistant professor, he's about to depart, but suddenly Veronica stops him to finish her point. She continues from earlier, noting that while it's true that healers can't utilize offensive magic, there is one condition that could allow a healer to become an offensive mage. The chick confused the heck out of his ass, since even our boy can't handle with that logic. Veronica shows her point by exposing her specially crafted sword of iron, a weapon that can slash and slay foes. She then talks about the bench next to them, which is built of wood, capable of being used by sitting on it. In other words, the smooth-brained professor is claiming water is wet and the floor is formed out of floor. But here's the twist. She picks up the bench and explains that even if she used it to beat the living daylights out of someone, it would still be a weapon. Hilariously, Will is starting to wonder how this muscular mama can even lift such a huge bench with such noodle arms. Anyway, Veronica's viewpoint is that even if something is intended for a different purpose, one can use it whatever they like. To personalize her argument, she shows with her hand and continues to massage his face, prompting this man to blush. This is a wet dream for most men, until she ends up flicking the heck out of his face, explaining how she used her hand for two purposes just now. She did end up beating him way too hard, but anyway, the concept remains the same. Same thing but different usage. Will's eyes finally open. He begins to ponder if he can use his healing magic as an offense. All this time, he never even pondered the concept. The very reason both factions of mages disagree with each other is due to the disparities that exist in their respective types of mana. But in Veronica's view, this kid is different. She thinks that he's already taking a leap by enrolling into an offensive magic institution, and even his mana suggests that he's not exclusively a healer. This is an observation that not even Will himself took note, making him question whether this is one of the abilities provided to him by Truck-kun. Pointing her blade at his neck, she orders him to become aware and kindle the aggressive passion within his spirit. If he does that, he'll become unstoppable and demolish anyone who stands in his path. The very next day arrives, with our youngster ruminating on his teacher's discourse from yesterday. She provided several other examples to demonstrate her argument, and what really stuns him is why she doesn't seem to have any kind of scrutiny toward common healers. Then there's the fact that she could come up with a notion on the spot that made sense. Will is starting to assume that she's employing the same way herself, but his train of thought is interrupted by an instructor harshly calling him healer. Today's session is particularly special, since there'll be a bunch of one-on-one combat going on. He's capable of competing alongside the others. Of course, whether he can utilize offensive magic or not is his own problem to deal with. The scumbag teacher has also finished his pairings, and without a shadow of a doubt, this jerk put our child against Ulpus, the blonde douchebag from the other day. Our boy isn't looking forward to this fight against Ulpus, because the kid is from a prominent noble academy and has all the backing. He's a trust fund baby, but much more than that, he's actually a formidable offensive mage. Ulpis already expects victory and trash talks our son, wondering if he'll run back to mommy after getting smashed. Our child is trying his absolute hardest to try and not be wrath-baited by this moron, even though he's from the future and knows he's against a youngster. It's still pissing him off. The fortunate news is that Will wants to test out Veronica's idea in action, so he shares interest in the battle. He asks for the professor's attention and refuses to forfeit. Instead, our boy's got a proposal, detailing how he doesn't have any talent for offensive magic at all, which would be a waste of time for this fight. So this raises the stakes and straight up proclaims that he'll drop out of Schwartz Academy if he loses this match. The professor is happy to hear those remarks, but the flip side is that if our son wins, he would be authorized to take regular classes. It's an outrageous proposal, but Ulpis is so arrogant that he laughs his ass off, expressing how stupid the thought of a triumph truly is. He even thinks Will is mega coping in his Delulu Island with no prospect of winning. The instructor gets fed up with them and accepts the request, telling both participants to take position. He gestures at the commencement of the contest, which kicks off with Ulpis calmly unleashing offensive magic. He manifests a cluster of glowing daggers. This is his specialty, dubbed knife creation magic. Basically, bro is Walmart Gilgamesh, his mini penis swords for a weapon. Blasting all of those daggers in Will's direction, he spouts that there's no way for a terrible healer to defend himself. But our boy is out here performing the Buddha posture and shit, ready to activate his domain expansion. The moment he utilizes his method, he's able to match the pace of the daggers and concisely sidestep all of them. This is a technique called life manipulation, something Will employ to alter the very essence of living organisms near him, raising their HP to the absolute limit. But that's not all. He might potentially utilize it as a strike from this similar method. Ulpis panics and considers it a nasty fluke, yet our boy's aura farming in the same stance. He catches Walmart Gilgamesh's dagger before cutting all the others with Shiru Emiya's stuff. The weapons falter and have done 0 damage thus far. But our boy's only getting started, and with a single dagger, he plans to terminate this struggle. The spectators can't fathom what just transpired. A healer using an aggressive attack just doesn't register in their brain. In actuality, Will has been employing healing magic as an attack and never ever employed offensive magic. Ulpis is in a clinch and trash talks how he was holding back the entire time. Apparently bro can increase the number of knives at his disposal, as if that's going to make a difference. He showers down the golden missiles against the healer in anger, but our boy nonchalantly starts cutting down each and every dagger. By the end of his defense, they're all shattered to the ground. Ulpis still thinks he's a hotshot, so he raises the size of his micro-penis dagger. And man, that viewpoint looks a bit dodgy if you ask me. Anyway, Will recognizes that fighting Ulpis is a nuisance due of his talent and comprehension of magic. To boost intricacy and firepower, Ulpis forces his dagger to revolve, basically shooting a missile at our boy's direction. Bro borrowed Sukuna's fire arrow furnace trick, only for Will to block that shit too. Ulpis can't borrow any more tactics from other performances and just roars in fury. Meanwhile, our boy thinks he should progressively enhance his strength. The strong missile is repelled with ease, much to Ulpis's amazement. Before he can do anything else, Will teleports behind him utilizing Goku's rapid transmission, vowing to heal him after this. Then he straight up goes for the kill, only for the instructor to butt in and cast a massive earth wall between the two. The instructor believes the contest is over, and urges both of them to step aside for the next pair. The defeat is extremely humbling for the cocky aristocrat, but Will is just delighted he can attend regular courses from now on, much to the annoyance of this poor instructor. Having wrapped up here, he rushes off, pondering on his combat experience. At last, he has devised his own form of offensive magic, and it was powerful enough to beat a skilled wizard. All of it is thanks to Veronica's direction. As for the loser douchebag, he gets aided by the instructor. Ulpis makes a plea to his teacher not to alert his father about this match. Both of them are D1 Reddit haters who just can't take the L. In the next scene, we find Will at the classroom. He can take classes here and refine his understanding of attack magic. The instructor enters the room and peeks a glance at Will before commencing class. So far his classes have been basic. One homeroom instructor basically manages all the classes. Will is intrigued by the magical tool creation class the most, recalling a similar notion at the Healing Academy. Today's lesson is addressing the creation of ice bombs. The lecturer will hand out materials for the pupils to assemble and process. Will recalls that he never actually produced weapons in his prior life, only recovery goods. but in the offensive academy, it's required of him to forge weapons for combat. The mana utilized for this reason will obviously be dynamic mana, but when it comes to creation, the nature of mana doesn't matter much at all. That's why Will won't have any trouble even with his surplus of static mana, and when he takes a peek at the materials, he finds ice golem fragments and powdered flame branches. Following the directions, he mixes the fragment, but suddenly senses a quick change. Will ends up hurling the ice piece through body enhancement, forcing that little particle to detonate and erupt, leaving behind spikes of ice. Our child is fairly impressed, but his little stunt over here is peak disdain for his class. The instructor scolds him and straight up says he'll remove points from Will's grade. The rest of the bullies chuckle, Ulpas especially, which implies that he's plotting with the teacher. Will's next lesson is right around the corner, on mystical creatures. He gets a cute salamander, as the lecturer stresses the low-tier students to listen intently. Our boy is a little concerned with the close distance to a supernatural creature. This little murder machine sends forth a cannon of fire, prompting Will to deflect. In actuality, that's only something our child imagined in his thoughts, even garnering the instructor's attention, who takes away his trusty pot. Things are not looking good, and Will is starting to fully comprehend what's going on. The instructor is allowing him to partake in lessons, but literally torturing him in every class. This means he won't be able to study, so he has to do something about his circumstances again. Watching him from afar is a weird student who appears to recognize the double standards at play here. The bullying continued without end. Will had to shield himself from not only the pupils, but also the instructor's crazy out-of-syllabus queries. His points were smushed to the ground, and even after the classes, he noticed mountains of trash just sitting around in his room. When he sought to address the supervisor about the situation, the supervisor penalized him even more by taking away his meal privileges. Bro's getting cooked left, right, and center. He collapses in his chamber, understanding that this academy is full with haters. Just as he accomplished one positive stride, he now has to face a shit ton more difficulties to circumvent again. Will recognizes that his present rate of improvement is doing wonders for him and does not want to let these bullies disturb him. The best thing is that he fought one of them and really won the fight, so having absolute proof that he can become the assault wizard he's always dreamed of. Focusing on the good, Will recalls purchasing his textbook, so he can now review homework and study properly. The following day arrives, and to his extreme horror, there's no teacher or any human to be around. The instructor generally arrives at this time, but there's only one pupil close, him. It's almost like the news of the abrupt schedule adjustment wasn't made public to select kids. Annoyed, Will gets up to strike a conversation with the girl. He walks up to her, shocking her with his approach. Our child just wants to know if the classes were altered overnight, and it's absolutely something related to that. The instructor hates specific pupils, and she's on that list too. So both of them are cooked. She thinks it's a fantastic idea for two bullied loners to get along, and Will can sense her anxiety. So he extends her a cheerful hand, promising to be her buddy. The girl is astonished, and bends her head with utmost reverence for him. She's introduced as Erica Glenn, the first friend Will has formed at the new academy. She feels it's entirely reasonable for him to not have anyone by his side, considering he entered classes late, and he's a healer. Erica stresses that people always comment about how terribly weak healers are, surprising Will. She herself isn't one to gloat about pals despite being an offensive wizard. Watching her personality, Will understands that the fierce discrimination against healers seems to be a culture of Schwartz Academy. It's true that offensive mages battle on the front lines, thus they have every reason to dislike healers staying at the back. Even in his prior life, Will found himself becoming recognized as a famous healer for the realm. He had credibility back then, but now at the Assault Academy, things are different. Will is going to be consumed by the Academy's discrimination if he doesn't fight against it. Erica inquires about his objective for coming to the Offensive Academy. Arranging his thoughts, Will says that he refuses to accept his reality as a natural healer and intends to join the front lines. His rationale disturbs her, but Will clarifies that he's got his personal reasons backing him. As for Erica's goals, reportedly she belongs to a small noble family in the countryside. With no sons born in her family, the parents felt their bloodline would cease. Taking matters into her own hands, she thought being a great attack wizard could enable her become the head of the family by status alone. It's an understandable ambition in Will's eyes, but Erica's problem is that she doesn't have a sliver of skill for magic. She also doesn't have friends, and gets bullied at class too. Luckily, she's glad to have acquired a friend in our boy, calling him an underachiever who would comfort her even when her grades are low. Bro's getting destroyed everywhere, but she's just playing around. Anyway, he tells her that Erica's expectations will be realized very soon. Without explaining much else, Will brings her to a different classroom where the real class is being held. The two of them find their way to the real class, only for the predictable instructor to consider them late. Will apologizes for not knowing about the sudden class change schedule, but this idiot has a stick up his ass and doesn't forgive them. To punish Will, he decides to whip him another question. This is horrible news. Erica already knows that our boy hasn't taken most of the previous lessons, which implies he wouldn't know anything. Taking a look at the board, Will breaks out the problem in his head, while his teacher underlines that points will be removed if he fails to score the correct answer. Ulpas ridicules Will further, knowing that he's at the point of failing. But our youngster is deep in concentration, so he gets the chalk and starts scribbling vigorously. Every statement draws the attention of the class. Even Ulpas feels this is merely a show-off attempt. In actuality, Will works out the perfect combination, illuminating the magic circle on the board. He smashed everyone's expectations, shutting the whole room down, including his terrible instructor. The teacher is obliged to agree that it's the proper answer, startling Ulpas and even Erica. There's just no way the new child managed to decode the answer even after missing all his classes. Right after that tedious class, Erica instantly wanted to know how he managed to solve that question. Will admits that it was actually quite straightforward to solve, as he learned it from the textbook. He'd already read the material, so he knew what to anticipate. What stuns her the most is that this man gobbled the entire book in a single friggin' night. Will only read it for the first time and ended up blitzing through the book, describing it as one of the greatest works on offensive magic. There were fundamental and sophisticated applications mentioned. Everything was covered with exquisite detail. He could study all of it on his own, but without possessing some type of magical comprehension, reading the literature was a chore. The fortunate thing about Will is that he was always brilliant at theoretical studies, so he could handle without much discomfort. He learned all about offensive magic in a single night, reading it like it was a fictional novel. While he's amused, Erica is out here creeped out. The book he absorbed is the boogeyman of their academy, something that can't be translated without the teacher's supervision. She's starting to regret her first assumption of calling him a failure, and realizes that she's the only bottom feeder around. The girl doesn't want him to abandon her at the lowest ranks, while our boy tells her that he's going to teach her anything that she has difficulties with. After all, they're besties from the same class. Erica brightens up a smile, feeling delighted to welcome his support. The reality is that our child came here to school for his goals, not to act buddy-buddy with the force of friendship. But because he's alone, he'll need Erica, so he tells her what a favor she needs to do for him. The upcoming class is the General Offensive Magic class, one he's never been able to pass, and the main reason he was never able to access the other classes. Erica thinks he should easily be able to do it now, because he vanquished Ulpas, but the reality is otherwise. Will actually can't utilize General Offensive Magic like everyone else, but he does have a fantastic idea. The setup requires Erica's aid in order for him to succeed. On the next scene, the pupils are assembled on the training grounds again. When it comes to offensive magic, there are two branches of general and special magic. General magic refers to spells with correctly designed spells, making them easily available for everyone through formulas. Contrasting their normal use case, unique magic comes etched from within a user, such as Ulpas's specific knife-making magic. The Academy's curriculum offers classes for both sorts of offensive magic, for pupils to perfect. Of course, unique magic doesn't lead to a proper answer. So for someone like our son, this is actually the easiest ticket for him to attend such seminars and win. Unfortunately, he's stymied when it comes to mastering general offensive magic, and his teacher understands this well. Taking full advantage of the healer, the instructor praises him on his theoretical skills and wonders how he'll do in the practicals. After all, Will is meant to flunk this class if he can't even use basic magic. The instructor underlines that the assignment is no different from all the prior attempts, with the purpose of firing a shot at the target. Once more, he reduces Will by labeling it an exceedingly basic work, which implies if he fails to complete something so fundamental to the school, he won't be able to graduate. The instructor recalls how the youngster employed healing magic in offensive movements, and how healing magic increases the body's general numbers. But it's different here, because Will can't utilize something like offensive magic. He merely wants this youngster to get lost and forfeit from his class. But our boy isn't going anywhere, and smiles at the scenario. The instructor is blown the fuck away when he sees Will's hand engulfed in flames. There's just no reason on earth why this kid is able to weave such magic. But don't be misled, this is actually just a sly method being used by our protagonist. His entire strategy rests upon Erica producing the fireball with her version of the basic assault spell. Then he deployed the fireball inside the tail of the salamander. Next, Will gently utilizes auto-healing to fan the flames, hiding them within his hand. Basically, he's doing what Gojo Satoru does with his reversed curse technique to continue limitless. It's infinite healing. But even then, Erica doubted his approach, doubting what type of man she was dealing with, not knowing he was the greatest healer of mankind at some point. Anyway, he ceased healing magic shortly after popping open his hand, making it seem like he produced a fireball from the palm of his hands. Next comes the easy part. He just shoots it down the target, bringing it down with a bullseye. The instructor? Bro is trembling like a leaf. His learner had humbled him yet again. The illusion is so good that he's absolutely convinced that Will casted offensive magic. This obtains an immediate passing grade, earning Erica's plaudits and absolute confusion from the viewers. Most of all, Ulpus is enraged. After class, he challenges the teacher for an answer. Neither of them has any idea what's going on. There's no plausible way for Will to have acquired general offense magic. Ulpus's ego is butthurt because of the loss he endured, and now this healer is taking things too far. Bro is going to go as far as complaining to his father to obliterate the class. Even the teacher is surprised by his forcefulness, while the haughty noble walks out, instructing the instructor to do everything it takes to exterminate the healer from their class. The douchebag teacher is now stuck in a pinch, since breaching the rules comes with the danger of being found. Unfortunately, he also spent a ton of time getting his job at the academy, so he can't lose it now. Weighing the risks, the teacher believes that it's preferable for him to gamble and get rid of the healer who is trying to mark his name on their academy. Bro is having a generational battle with a 15-year-old pupil and ultimately decides to take matters into his own hands. After classes, in the training grounds, the instructor ends up summoning Will all alone. Bro threatens our kid, but Will takes it as a compliment, too thick to grasp the circumstance he's in. The instructor adds that he wants to humble the kid's confidence, especially after he skipped many of the lessons when he initially got to the academy. It's not even our boy's fault, because this dipshit teacher is the one who refused to let him take those classes to begin with. Will pushes back, saying he's already gone through the material via his buddies and self-studying, so there's nothing to worry about. But this teacher is being authoritative in his approach and simply doesn't care, feeling this new lesson is important for Will. The material is set by him as the instructor. Therefore, here they will be participating in a proper mock fight. It's very suspicious to Will that he's having to fight a teacher for no reason, and the instructor realizes this is unjust, so he lets the boy off with a handicap. If Will can score even a single hit, he'll be deemed the champion of this mini-exam. With this kind of leverage, the instructor expects the boy not to turn tail and take the fight seriously. Of course, this moron never even entertained the thought of losing. As for our youngster, he is deep in thought, piecing together the circumstances. The boy accepts the stipulations of the duel, much to the appeal of the teacher. The conflict begins instantly with the instructor using an earth spell from the ground. Luckily, Will has some knowledge of his teacher's fighting style. He knows this guy excels in earth magic, so he dodges the initial hit promptly. But that same strike grows a dick and compels him to dodge again. Will is getting blasted by many hits, yet he evades properly. The teacher mocks him for dodging non-stop, but Will's present challenge is coping with the bothersome earth magic, which may be spammed non-stop. Then there's the fact that his assault has a crap ton of range, making it radically different from Alpus. At the same time, Bro's not finished yet, and finds himself going Ultra Instinct on each hit. Will narrows the distance down and runs towards his teacher, who ignites more of his earth magic, slicing a wall out from each side before pressing it shut, forming a sandwich out of the boy. This act appears like the ultimate doom, until the gentleman sees his student falling from the heavens with a dagger in his hand. This is the only opportunity he has, so Will lands the dagger attack, smashing his teacher's head. Unfortunately, this man cut a durable armor, preventing the hit. The student forcibly avoids the instructor's next attack, establishing distance again. This small serpent deems his learner pathetic and shows his all-powerful ironclad armor. Even Will thinks that name is awful as fudge, while his teacher mocks him for utilizing an imitation of general offense magic. He talks down, berates, and shuns the student's confidence for even contemplating the idea of becoming an assault magician. However, the modest pupil firmly reminds the instructor that healing magic enables him to examine the human body in amazing detail. This manner, he could comprehend that most humans held back their strength not to kill. Their very own bodies can't bear their entire might, and reaching that limit will lead their bodies to degenerate. The teacher views it as an insult, because Will is trying to lecture him acting high and mighty, but the kid's reasoning is quite straightforward. If someone can remove the limiter of the human body, they can draw out huge power at the cost of rupturing their body. But the nice thing for Will is that he's a healer, so he's going to pull an Izuku Midoriya. He's fine with his arms ending up getting shattered in the process. The boy's tenacity stuns the instructor as he calmly moves up to his teacher, who still thinks his wince armor won't have any effect. Deku prepares his Texas Smash. Oh shit, wait, wrong tail again. His teacher yells as Will annihilates his armor with his fist. Bro not only cracks the armor, he leaves his face looking more damaged than Jake Paul in his battle versus Anthony Joshua. Will recalls the lovely instructor not to decide a student's destiny, and feels warm remembering Veronica's instruction again. She's the only reason for helping him unlock such tremendous strength from the healing magic he already has. Will thinks he can become much stronger, but while he's buried in thinking, the teacher creeps and hits him with another earth column. Luckily, he is able to evade, but it isn't enough to soothe this man's blood-boiling wrath. Will wasn't expecting to be ambushed by that attack, especially considering he already passed the criteria of the test. The instructor spouts additional crap, explaining that there weren't any witnesses to confirm such a thing, which implies technically a healing wizard never even hit him. He refuses to admit his defeat at the hands of a pesky healer, and floods more earth spells against our boy. Will is starting to get real bored of this man's I am the rules, Seto Kaiba bullshit approach. But, owing to him already having disabled his limiters, he can launch at rocket speeds and blow past him again. The instructor couldn't even process Will's unexpected advance, as the child charges his hefty hand, preparing to destroy him a second time. Not even his wince armor will appear timely to save him from this haymaker, but then, the punch pauses. Right before smashing his face in, the punch halted. It's as if the flow of time itself is no more. Will's punch smashes his face, humiliating the instructor, as he analyzes the intense agony. This nasty and slow-ass punch is worse than enduring the last onslaught. He can't even run away this time, or scream to save his life. The scene is actually amusing, because this one punch is taking up like 50 panels. Finally, Will uses true force and sends this man flying, causing him to fall onto the ground. All this time, the healer had been utilizing another one of his healing tricks. He welcomes the instructor back to reality, explaining how only a moment passed in the real world. But don't worry, he's not like his teacher who doesn't explain things, and correctly shares what happened on. First, when Will connected his blow, he activated an illusion enhancement spell. This magic is designed to restore persons with compromised senses like eyesight, but recently, our youngster has been utilizing it in fight to boost his quickness and reaction time. He can essentially use it against an opponent, hyper-stimulating their senses, making them believe 1 second is truly 100 seconds. This makes the attack feel considerably more painful, as it is harsh and excruciating. Finally, Will puts on a charming little smile for his teacher, and asks one last inquiry, questioning if he can pass the class now. Before the snobbish instructor even speaks, Bro grabs his shoulder, threateningly telling him that he's going to eradicate every last inch of discrimination the teacher has for the healer. The same innocent healer is looking like a demon king right now, and adds that his main purpose is to enjoy his classes, which means if this person or his students ever interrupt him again, things will go terribly wrong for him. Will makes his proposition with a bright smile, finishing their session. That nightfall, the instructor is seen marching around in distress, pondering the kind of monster he encountered. He used to believe that every healing wizard was weak as shit and obedient to the dictates of the frontline mages. But this person is different. He's got top-rank combat skills and a wicked killing purpose. Coincidentally, he ends up stumbling into the blonde punk, who is curious to know about the outcome of the training session. Ulpus snickers, assuming that ended up with our boy's demise, but then he gets quiet like a dog. The instructor is done with his nepo baby yapping, and begs the noble not to entangle himself against Will. It's for the good of all of them, and it was their greatest misconception to suppose that Will was simply an ordinary-ass healing wizard. Opus is startled by advice, and brings up the threat of his father again, but this time, the instructor is fearless. He basically tells the blonde punk to go complain to his daddy all he wants, because in actuality, if Opus had all of this influence, he could have easily eliminated the healer by now. The Omen family isn't strolling around on Opus's directions, but it is quite certain that if they keep fooling around with the new kid, he'll destroy them for good. Opus is left angry off, unable to believe that the situation has degenerated in this direction. After the amazing beatdown, a few days passed. Class has just concluded. Will is cooling, since he can just sense the blonde nobility becoming careful about him now. He doesn't pull any tough moves anymore, or make any comments. This manner, our boy can finally focus on his lessons. However, he's unsatisfied with his current state of things. His ultimate purpose is to overturn the truth of humanity's demise in the future. The only way to prevent a sad fate like that is to become stronger. Sure, his healing magic is assisting him with bodily enhancement, but he's boxed himself with just basic strength strikes right now. Sensory enhancement is helpful for illusions too, but it's nothing compared to the varied combat style of offensive magic. Will recognizes that he needs to carve up an entirely new combat technique to catch up. He describes this exact mental process to Assistant Professor Veronica, asking her help again. Will's approach needs modification, but Veronica has one other thing to say before. He's hesitant to hear what she's going to say, but she actually ends up congratulating him for everything he's done so far. Thanks to his contributions, the teachers have been discussing about the healer non-stop. A healer mage is keeping up with the top classes of the academy, and it's nothing to scoff at, while some other teachers are also looking hateful of his advancement, which checks out. Interestingly, Veronica hasn't actually acknowledged to anyone that she's the reason behind his improvement. She also never got the chance to address it among the professors, because the others merely disdain her for being special even at their ranks. Our son is relieved because this way he won't cope with any trouble. It was her advice that got him this far, and he wouldn't want her to be in trouble because of it. The professor doesn't mind, and adds that frankly, she's grateful to him. Like she said previously, healing wizards never even try to bring their beliefs to reality. She pulls out her sword again. Strangely, she likes doing that a lot, and challenges our son to a duel. Will certainly didn't anticipate this move coming from Veronica, but she's really curious to discover where he stands at his level. It's the surest way to help him develop stronger, but our boy's just not ready at all, and panics like crazy. The swordswoman emphasizes that the enemy won't wait, and blitzes from her location. She thunderously comes right in front of him to slash him down, something he's able to dodge in the very last second. He can barely hold his weapon together against her hefty assaults, and she proceeds to overwhelm him with a flurry of cuts. Despite spending all of his boosters and response speed, he can't even keep up with her. The thing about Veronica is that she's more than swift. This woman is lightning personified. Her blade neatly swings from one swing to another, which means in a war of endurance, it's Will who will be the first to break. Enduring the hefty impacts, Will recognizes that he's only got one shot to impress her with his limit-breaking speed. This way he'll catch her off surprise. Instilling his energy into his heel, our child crackles ahead with thunderous ferocity of his own. The professor didn't expect this action just like he predicted, and precisely when the blade is going to pierce her face, she reacts point blank and counters the attack by practically slicing his weapon apart. The fight's ended, and even with Will's best effort, he is no match for the elite warrior's talent. Veronica affirms her enthusiasm. She didn't believe he could pull a fast one on her like that. What she used back there was a magic sword to counter him. All this time she assumed he was a healing magician who could utilize aggressive moves. But this is different. The boy's current combat talents rank near the top of the leaderboard, but Will doesn't find happiness in his growth like always. She seconds his passion and determination to get stronger, and recognizes that augmentation isn't his final aim. Will acknowledges that he's trying to remove the restriction of his body, but that won't be enough, as proved today in their fight. The lecturer adds another parallel, explaining that a sword's purpose is beyond casual swinging. It can thrust and be thrown, and healing magic must have applications like that too. Unfortunately, Will has been thinking similar ideas but can't come up with anything. The stunning swordswoman reveals that his shortcoming is actual battle experience. He lacks the sensibility to describe what it means to battle. In Veronica's view, experience trumps wisdom when applied correctly. Even in their present conflict, Will recognized the small item that she used. Figuring out her counsel, Will asks if he should undertake additional mock battles against the professor. Veronica appreciates the approach, but suggests that he enroll in a monster subjugation training expedition. The boy is perplexed. At least, he'll have an up-close encounter of a life-and-death fighting situation. He genuinely partook in the same tournament throughout the 3 academies of Schwartz, Heilig, and Zilburn. All 3 academies boast offensive, defensive, and swordsman styles. Their students are supposed to fulfill subjugation requests. At Heilig Academy, the youngster didn't engage in the mission itself, but this time, he has the opportunity to take out horrific beasts and earn experience against the destruction to come. Will steals his determination for his first ever subjugation assignment. Veronica observes him with interest, reminding him of the participation conditions. The youngster must prove his aptitude in the selection exam, and there's a rumor of a prodigy circulating about among the first years. Will's new ambition is to score the top spot within the selection procedure versus his peers. He asks about the details of the selection exam. The simple condition is that the candidates will battle against each other. 100 persons normally volunteer and demonstrate their talents, selecting the finest of the best. Even our boy is starting to grow fed up with the school's incessant emphasis on fighting. Back at Heilig Healing Academy, a few volunteers came forward to join, which meant that anyone may partake in the mission. But there is a distinct format in Schwartz Academy, boasting a selection process. Will recalls the warm recollections at the Healing Academy, wondering how this old instructor is holding up right now. Veronica goes back to speak about the prodigious pupil with an aptitude level far above some of the professors. This means that Will won't be gaining the top slot easily, which makes him wonder if the assistant professor has personally met this student. Unfortunately, she has never had the chance to meet this guy, because he likes avoiding teachers, acting like he's way superior than them. He doesn't even come to ask her questions, but that's aside from the fact that she's frightening. Anyway, Veronica tells Will that she'll aid with his training for the exam, something that brightens up his mood, because she's the only chance he's got at getting better. We skip ahead to the day of the selection exam. Will enters into the arena, noting that time passed rapidly since then. He feels more confident than ever, having accomplished all his preparations. As he's mixing around, a certain voice screams out his name. It's the chairman of the Magic Academy Alliance, Arnolim. The principal is glad to inform that his grandson has been obtaining steady recovery ever since he healed her. The chairman even apologizes for not caring after the lad, even after he saved his grandchild's life. Will notes that while he did struggle at the academy's obstacles at first, he's perfectly blended in today without any trouble. In fact, he's even determined to score first place at the selection exam, a noble ambition that impresses the chairman. Interrupting their chat arrives the party pooper, an instructor who destroys Will's comments by calling them a joke. He feels this pipsqueak is underestimating his class badly. And by the way, Bode is also the field training supervisor for the event. Interestingly, Will has met this person in his prior life. Bode was called the Violet Lightning, famed for his amazing hero class results in the Great War. Unfortunately, these two never got along well, and even now it's happening the same. The brooding macho wizard intimidates the healer by underlining how the world is filled of fighting geniuses. Training is simply a pebble in contrast. He aggressively shit-talks Will to his face, claiming that the youngster's got no chance of winning as a healer. The boy doesn't answer, while the chairman recommends they settle their issue at the exam, not before it. The instructor nags that he's merely schooling the brat, and underlines that the actual victor of this exam is going to be Sirius from his class. This young man is straight up a character copy-pasted from Genshin Impact. Sirius Bluenote is the prodigy everyone greets with high expectations, and also the same man whom our youngster is destined to confront for first place in the selection exam. The competition is heated, and the chairman is pleased to watch them just staring the other down. Without wasting time, the candidates enter the competitor arena, surrounded by a cheering throng ready for an amazing match. Will and Erica are in the second row at the front, with the healer expressing his disbelief to witness her involvement. Unfortunately, she's got to participate, or else she'll forfeit her allowance privileges at the academy. Even Opus is eyeing our kid down from afar, while the chairman publicly congratulates the applicants for making it this far, and hopes for the greatest mages to win. The first round is going to be a preliminary round, one that will dismiss most of the contenders, leaving only the best for proper selection. This means all of them are going to be fighting each other at the same moment, 100 pupils against each other. The location is far too tiny for their combat, but no worries, for the chairman utilizes his personal domain expansion to cast them in a whole different dimension. The pupils can't even understand where they've been transferred to, while the old geezer stands at the edge of space itself, distributing them into other areas. Will is taken into a forest close behind the academy. With all of the kids transported, the headmaster declares that all of them have been placed in random locations. The idea is to collaborate wisely and prevent overwhelming opponents. All starting positions are luck-based. Will is out here marveling at the chairman's extraordinary teleportation talent, because this old fart just teleported them at the same time. Thus comes the start of the field training exam. First things first. Our lad leaps off to a branch, before using the presence concealment spell. This way, he'll disguise his existence and go incognito, playing it safe around other contestants. When he glances back, he really discovers 3 students squaring against each other. One of them employs a gigantic earth golem which could pass for a Pokemon, to be honest, while this other girl's got a big-ass fairy hammer. Both of them are so busy facing the other that they forget about the third attacker, a woman who freezes them in place. Will is impressed to see the diversity of talents other attack mages possess, and believes there's a lot he can learn from them, other than just wanting first place. He likes what he just witnessed and aims to rebuild it into his own skill set. The fight's ended, and the last man standing is the golem dude. They're out here partying, so winning an incredible fight. Meanwhile, our boy comes along and pulls a mental bitch moment. Will grabs his head and activates consciousness blocker, knocking him unconscious immediately. Think of it like a smaller version of limitless nothingness from Gojo again. Will is able to influence his opponent's life energy and cause them to black out, but it's vital for his grasp to be firm, or else the move won't work properly. This is a technique he borrowed from Veronica during their training sessions. Lost in thought, Will scarcely notices an attack coming his way. He dodges a bunch of short daggers and quickly recognizes it's the same retarded dumbass again. This time, the boy brought his buddies too. Ulpis believes that he's only attempting to pass this exam, just like every other student. But he's got the numbers edge in a 3-against-1 situation here. Ulpis activates knife creation magic. One lackey covers his daggers in poison. The final lackey utilizes shadow clone magic to replicate them even further. With these poison blades, even a single graze could lead to our boy's demise. Blocking is straight up out of the question. Dozens of blades spring their way to Will, seeking him down. As they approach him, he entertains the possibility of healing the poison with recovery magic. Dealing with so many of these daggers, even with physical enhancement, seems like a pain in the ass. Cornered, he decides to pull an entirely fresh maneuver. A sudden wall arrives in front of him, defending Will from the knives. Ulpis is startled, as he witnesses the identical rock golem now serving a different master. The interesting aspect about recovery magic is that it may be utilized on other living species. The rock golem here is capable of moving on its own, using the caster's blood. Even though it's incapable of complicated patterns, the healer may easily manipulate it, using his spell called Pseudo-Life Imbuement. The golem charges at the Skindiana Bones trio. First, our bad lad whacks one dude's chest, then he squats on top of another person, perhaps inflicting him permanent back pain. With the two of them finished, Ulpis is seen panicked. He's dead meat because our boy blitzes him like Minato Namakase, grabbing his face and tapping him out to sleep. The fight's ended, so Will returns to stealth mode, his golem taking the advance on the battlefield. Since his enhancement tactics prohibit him from close quarters fighting, his best shot is utilizing a golem to compensate for a conspicuous deficit. He can also securely observe everyone like this. Suddenly, a massive twister attracts his eye. It's as if a natural disaster devastated the forest. But rather, this spiral of wind is a true Kamehameha wave, one that our boy barely manages to escape. The blast practically scars the friggin' earth, obliterating the golem as well as the rest of the kids, even knocking down all the trees in the remaining area. In the distance, Will sees one man. It's Sirius, the prodigious pupil, and I'm not even joking. Bro appears more of a main character than the dude we got. His powers are intimidating at a look. Will considers if he should utilize a move to combat him, but suddenly, the contest is forced to an end. The headmaster commemorates each candidate for their efforts, finishing the preliminary round. Only 4 remaining contenders will make it to the next step. The true competition will be held in the arena. So until then, the chairman recommends the kids to rest as he initiates transfer magic. While the transfer magic is kicking underway, Sirius, the very serious man, gravely glares with a serious expression at our serious protagonist. Will has to find the will to beat this person in one day. Both of them vanish after that. Back at home, our nerd is busy completing homework, thinking of a strategy for the exam. Just outside his chamber, Ulpis and his group of losers have arrived once more. They're already irritated about getting awarded 50 Ls every time they challenge the healer. But Ulpis is a sour loser, a twat. He cares about the pride of his aristocratic family, and wants to protect the Oman family's honor against a humble healer. What scares him most is his father knowing about the whole scenario. Still, his friends just don't have the heart to tag along. They ditch his ass and leave him to deal with his own issue. Ulpis panics and eventually boils with wrath, stating that he has a method to get rid of the healer even without using magic. All the while our youngster is chilling in his chamber. Suddenly, Will hears a knock at an unusual hour. He goes up to open the door and already detects a horrible feeling. Obviously, it's Ulpis at the door, who pulls out the cheesy noble act and meets him pleasantly. Will is suspicious and doesn't buy his acting talents, but the Golden Noble is merely come for a discussion. He displays his absolute disdain for healers, explaining how he's done a whole variety of things to eliminate Will from the academy. Obviously, our lad pulled an Uno reverse in every instance and outplayed him back to back. But now Ulpus has arrived with a special message. His pleasant attitude collapses as he instructs the boy to leave the academy. Yeah, so much for that lousy acting performance. Will is truly starting to respect this man's hate game, like he just can't leave him alone for once. Ulpus boasts himself as a respectable member of a noble family, and doesn't want healers lounging around. Even his older brother was weak as a healer. People mocked him, and he'd just grin in front of them. Offensive mages are prideful, while normal healers are pitifully pathetic. This is the grim truth for most teachings of noble families. A cruel system. Ulpus insists Will to leave by the power of speak no jutsu, but Will genuinely isn't going to be like, yeah buddy, thanks let me quit, so he rejects him. The noble arrives prepared for it and underlines that he knows about Will's family. Thanks to his staff and connections in the outside world, the nobility learnt that Will has a sister. Both of them enjoy a beautiful bond together. With a single order, his servants can simply take out the boy's sister if he desired. Now the scene is getting considerably more heated. Will's typical cool demeanor drops, and lunges straight for this guy's neck, before bitch-slapping him into the ground. Next he goes up from behind, pulling his arm in a position where it could easily shatter apart. Will reminds the sweet noble that he already made up his mind, and despite Ulpus crying like a dog, his arm goes crack, leaving him a whimpering mess. The noble is still hell-bent on retribution, declaring that the academy won't forgive him for breaking his arm. But here's the nifty twist. Bro forgot that Will is actually a healer. It's all okay again, which also means it can gladly be cracked again. Crack goes a second time, leaving Ulpus shattered with roaring, terrible anguish. Will hears it again, and this game continues. The noble pleads again, but it breaks again nevertheless. The cycle of breaking and healing carries on, with Will playfully declaring that he sticks to his decision passionately, threatening his sister as a border this guy should never have crossed. Crack, crack, and crack, relentless arm shattering until Ulpus' spirit is tormented apart. He now sees that this youngster isn't a healer, but modern Satan himself. Just as the reality check the teacher got, the noble is made very plain he can't fuck around with him again. That night, Will sends the noble back with happy respects, as if nothing even happened. Our boy doesn't even feel a single ounce of regret, despite experiencing bliss before sleeping. The following day, the major event is begun. People in the arena are expecting for this encounter with considerable curiosity. The four that cleared round 1 are expected to confront each other. One of them happens to be Erica herself, someone who outshone Will's expectations. Apparently, she just imprisoned herself with firewalls, intimidating everyone else from venturing to approach her. Long story short, this girl didn't even move, and won by default. But something feels odd. Will doesn't think this is the complete story. She asks him to go easy on her, but this man isn't a simp, and intends to go all out. Erica indicates that she'll be striving for a much higher evaluation after beating him, and so commences their epic duel. Her initial strike arrives in the shape of a burning flame. Will contest this fire attack by blocking it head-on. It's a simple fire spell, nothing exceptional about it. Even his healing magic can readily restore any damage without issue. This simple move makes him underestimate Erica until he notices something truly horrible. That identical spell that hit him is more than just a simple attack. It's a trap. Erica continues her identical onslaught, throwing fireballs back to back. But something unusual about her flames is that they're not extinguishing at all. This woman learned Amaterasu from Itachi and replicated his full flow. Despite her limited firepower, the duration is at normal. Even if he maintains active recuperation, repeated harm is likely to hurt him. This observation checks out last time also, when he begged for her flame to cheat the basic offense magic exam. This also shows why she was unable to be approached by any of the contestants utilizing her firewalls, because the flames would literally not go out. Erica's flames are a reflection of her stubbornness, and her unexpected skill exposure catches the attention of the crowd. To be honest, they merely support her because they want to see our boy lose. An air of superiority takes over her. The realization that she can make past both the preliminaries and even eliminate someone as powerful as Will. Formulating his counterattack, our youngster casually destroys the flames after tripling his healing output. She repeats the same action again, but Will is ready this time. Knowing that her flames won't flare out, he grabs it purposely, strengthening his personal offensive instead. This is a fantastic use of combat IQ, because now the healer has fire fists, helping his offensive strikes. Erica is ready to get blown away when she suddenly throws her hands and forfeits the contest. Luckily, she walks out unscathed, the announcer crowning Arlat the winner of the match. Unfortunately, his evaluation stats won't alter much, even after the battle. The same mob that cheered Erica earlier suddenly turns against her, branding her a phony for an offensive mage. Poor girl has been a support all her life and breaks under the weight of expectations, but her loyal buddy helps her up, highlighting how well she battled. He even treats her wounds, garnering her affection. That charming little romance is crushed as Professor Bode walks on stage, proclaiming it the end of the line. Pointing his finger at the healer, he actually deems Will a piece of filth, and he's hella upset that an offensive mage quit against someone like that. His words scare off poor Erica, leaving Will to ponder if this is proper behavior coming from an instructor. The supervisor touts his position, underlining that his responsibility is to speak out the reality for what it is, which he deems encouraging. But as he goes, he affirms to our lad that there's only going to be one successful candidate from the contest. That man in question approaches the healer. It's the Sirius. The two of them share a brief contact. Sirius doesn't even bother to glance at him while talking. He is a singular believer in strength and agrees with Instructor Bode's perspective of the universe. The healer's cool with that. However, the prodigy does have one last thing to admit. He sincerely praises the healer for being strong, but at the same time, Sirius wishes to prove his own ideology correct by defeating him in their duel. Let's zoom out on the prodigy's talents. Will recalls hearing his name in his prior existence. A man with an extraordinary level of offensive magic. Someone whose winds are so strong, nothing and no one can stand in his way except being reduced to ashes. The final match between Sirius and Will is about to commence. From the way things look, our guy recognizes that he'll only get respect from the Academy if he defeats the prodigy here. So his goal is to win. The last match opens off with Sirius releasing an overwhelming twister from where he stands. The strike consumes too much space, causing Will to evade cautiously. Retaliating with his own limit-breaking speed, Will launches with lightning-quick speed, approaching the prodigy with all he's got. But before he can shorten the distance, Sirius dispels an all-out wind attack, keeping him far away. This is an issue for the healer. He can't make a serious blow without getting near. The two forces of nature resume their fight. Sirius and Will face each other as Sirius notes his speed. He raises his hand to attack and throws a burst of powerful wind directed at his opponent. Our youngster learns that the tornado from earlier was nothing like this wind, which manages to wipe away the entire area. He fights to keep on his feet, but it's now time to make its debut. He places his palm on the ground and begins to grow an enormous tree, while Erica in the audience is surprised by the effectiveness of the healing magic, knowing he has strengthened. A bit ago, our child showed this gift to Professor Veronica and stated that he poured life energy into the plant, which helped it develop swiftly. He had learned prior about assault magic that could manipulate plants and wanted to give it a shot with this skill. He intended to alter his approaches accordingly. Suddenly, he begins to tumble to the ground, and Professor Veronica pulls him upright. He is astonished by the quick mana exhaustion, since the text didn't indicate that it might be such a huge strategy. Veronica solves the code, stating why destroying is easier than healing, since healing consumes considerably more mana than attack magic. And recreating attack magic using healing magic is definitely a highly inefficient use of mana. Knowing the dangers of this skill, he plans to peep it for moments when it can be properly employed. Coming back to the present, our hero uses this skill on the battlefield, since his attack magic doesn't have much efficiency, so he decides to rely on this move. When the tree finishes growing, Sirius manages to cut it down with a windblade strike. This throws our guy off, since Sirius's magic consists of tornadoes that can consume adversaries and storms that can blow away a huge region. His windblades are suited for solid objects, but the tornado deals with anyone who approaches him by concentrating around him. Will recognizes that Sirius is labeled the top prospect for a reason, but he has also aimed to make himself stronger using this magic, and leaps in Sirius's direction. Instantly, the opponent constructs a cyclone around himself and belittles him, stating that he cannot reach him no matter what he does. And obviously, he wasn't wrong. As soon as our boy hits the tornado, he is thrown away. Sirius smiles, but then he realizes something is dreadfully wrong. He looks at his shoulder and sees that it is penetrated by a piece of wood. Confusion is obvious on his face as he requests an explanation. Will confidently reveals his tactic. He realized that Sirius couldn't defend the ground underneath him, So the plant underground shot its roots in every direction, and that's how he ended up with a stabbed shoulder. The protagonist wonders if he is worried about Professor Bode, as their personalities are completely different from one another, while Sirius groans in pain. Sirius clarifies that the teacher instructs him because he is strong. Our boy throws more questions at him, knowing he is from a well-known family. Sirius tells the facts about his family. Magic talent matters above all else. The strongest person becomes the family leader. No other aspect like gender or age matters. This has generated opponents inside the family, all competing for control, and his own father refuses to educate him. For Sirius, listening to the teacher is the only way for him to actually grow power and strength. Then he gathers all his magic energy once more, which surprises the entire crowd, including our protagonist. A dragon is produced from the magic power, and Sirius announces that they will settle this immediately. The dragon aims at our guy, making him know this is no child's play. A time back, Will used to assume that mages with offensive magic had it easier, which made him want to grind harder. But the entire time, he was mistaken. It struck him that talent isn't the only thing that determines superiority. Things like ancestry, talent, and the history all play their part. All of this prompts him to announce to Sirius that he wants to beat him in this fight. Sirius is baffled by the sudden announcement. Will throws his palm to the ground, preparing to use his special seed, and begins to build a tree once more, dubbed Yggdrasil. The plant rapidly develops, eating considerably more mana than the other plants. However, the positive is that it will continue to expand as long as our guy keeps feeding mana into it. Sirius hits with a wind blade, which manages to split the tree in half again, sending it flying into the sky. But as he looks up, the solitary branch that was flying has grown into a giant tree, and it is coming directly toward him. Meanwhile, Will guesses that because Sirius's magic is already being utilized to maintain the wind dragon, he won't have enough time to defend himself. The supposition turns out to be right, as the tree crashes down on Sirius. As he glances up, he sees Will standing with a knife aimed toward him. Contemplating, he understands that he has lost. Will is announced as the winner. The crowd cheers since they didn't expect Sirius to lose, and they discuss about the strength the protagonist possesses. Then, the hero extends his hand to assist Sirius get back on his feet, admiring his strength. But Sirius sounds defeated. Our boy tries to soothe him, acknowledging it was a good match. Suddenly, Professor Bode walks in, visibly disappointed at Sirius. With his strength, he kicks the tree off him and lifts him up by the waist. He pulls him away, incensed that Sirius has failed him, saying that his training would be started once more from scratch. The entire crowd falls silent, understanding how incredibly shocking this sounds. Bode turns to the throng, saying that this was meant for everyone. Infuriated, he can't get himself to believe that a literal healer took first place. Will understands that Bode's outburst is getting out of control. He continues to defend Sirius, arguing that his strength was rather good, and that losing doesn't mean he is weak in any way. As he is going to further defend his opponent, Bode violently stops him up. Then Bode begins heading toward our guy, ridiculing his defense statements for Sirius. He pushes Sirius aside, and labels our guy foolish, claiming that in a match, only power can provide best outcomes. Engulfed by his emotions, he declares that losing makes one no better than thrown trash. Will is upset by Bode speaking so severely about his own follower. He begins to explain that being a healer doesn't give Bode the right to say whatever he wants. Bode's eyes flame with wrath as he tries to demoralize our hero, suggesting that he would soon be thrown to the weak side because there is little value in being a healer. He further taunts him by pointing out the extreme decrease of his mana levels, which surprises our youngster. Bode adds that weaklings are parasites that get stronger people killed. Being termed dead weight takes our child into a flashback of his youth, where he was abused by Bode for not being strong enough. Even so, he tried to justify himself, saying that healers support others with their magic. Yelling, he sought to prove his point that the planet needed healers to maintain equilibrium, or else humanity will perish. Bode lets him leave, and remembers how his protege once stood on the front lines to gain time for the rearguard to escape, only to be wiped out by weak monsters at the escape spot. His disciple died with nowhere left to go, and Bode watched helplessly, knowing he couldn't treat him. He clenches his fist and says that Sirius shouldn't die for trash like that. From a practical sense, the lecturer isn't altogether wrong. If you are weak, you will die in the end no matter what. Therefore, people must learn to survive. Still, there will come a time when monsters grow more ferocious, and when that happens, the powerful cannot afford to be selfish. For moments like those, people without talent must know how to fight as well. Returning to the present, our guy challenges the professor to a duel. expecting it will make him acknowledge him. Bode scoffs and accepts the challenge, knowing that there is no way a mere healer could win against him. Hearing this, the referee panics and asks if Bode is genuinely serious about the challenge. Bode proudly bends the rules to suit himself. With no way out, the referee carries Sirius away. A unique match, Will versus Bode, is announced, and moments later, the match begins. Bode snaps his fingers, claiming that he will show just how weak our lad really is. With the amount of mana he has left, Will is anxious about facing the strongest opponent he has faced in a while. He begins to plot carefully, for this isn't a usual combat. As he is about to start, Bode shouts about how slow our guy is and unleashes his attack. The spark of the magic is enough to light up the entire ground. He then brags about teaching him the 3 reasons he is guaranteed to win. A big amount of mana radiates as he delivers the first reason, advantage in distance to restrain the enemy. The second factor is speed, which stops them from taking action. The third reason is the power to finish them in a single blow. As Bode is about to continue, he mocks that the protagonist might not be able to hear him right now. Our hero rises once more, asking where the power that finishes in one blow is. Despite being obviously damaged, our guy still stands, knowing that the professor possesses special lightning magic. To preserve himself from electrical injury, he must somehow escape a direct impact to the inside of his body. He is aware that his powers will be useless if his brain or heart are hit, as his healing magic won't be fast enough. For that precise reason, he constructed a blood circuit that could carry electricity readily. He stabbed his hand with his knife, so when the electricity contacts the blade, it goes through his arm and legs and is sent into the ground, limiting the damage he suffers. Even then, sustaining electrical strikes is incredibly tough. Now it is time for our boy to initiate a counterattack. Bode downplays him, claiming he feels sorrow for him, knowing that he barely managed to endure the onslaught. Will then attempts to enhance his body physically using magic, but abruptly learns that he cannot pour strength into his body. Bode explains that his violet lightning paralyzes its target, making them unable to move. Will understands that he might be in severe trouble and raises his hand again as another strike comes near him. Egotistically, Bode wants to continue, utilizing the remaining mana he has to see how many hits the protagonist can bear. Bode releases his attack, driving the crowd into astonishment, while our guy continues to withstand it, knowing that the professor genuinely has strong and flawless unique magic, which fuels his hubris, but the protagonist refuses to give up. He decides that he will win, devoting every bit of his remaining mana and stamina into manipulation. He smacks his hand against the ground and immediately begins growing a water treasure tree. This tree has the power to absorb huge amounts of water from the ground and store it. Therefore, if utilized as a barrier, the electricity will be readily distributed. However, fate has other plans. Bode succeeds in cutting down the tree with his electrical strike, plunging the crowd into shock. Our youngster is struck dumbfounded as Bode continues advancing toward him, assuming the protagonist has nothing left. But when Bode looks at the fallen tree, he sees mushrooms immediately begin to grow, which genuinely shocks him. Our boy feels a quiet feeling of relief. His technique worked, as mushrooms grow swiftly after a lightning hit. When a forest is turned into a wasteland by lightning, it creates a chance for growth without enemies, and mushrooms are among the first to bloom. But that isn't the only advantage they bring. They also produce paralysis in the body, and Bode experiences it directly. He panics, and our guy seizes the chance, knowing that the favorable distance between him and his opponent is finally gone. He charges his fist and throws it directly at Bode. But Bode manages to evade it and hits our kid directly in the gut. He explains that he is also proficient in close combat, and that his particular magic allows him to manipulate electricity further. He argues that if he reinforced his body with electricity to expedite his movements, that paralyzing trick would be nothing in comparison. On the ground, holding his chest, Will is hesitant to comprehend that he might not be able to win. Proudly, Bode charges his fist, declaring himself the victor of the duel. But before he can land the punch, someone stops him. Turning back, he sees Professor Veronica with her blade drawn. He tries to brush her off, claiming that she shouldn't meddle as a novice. Our youngster shivers, however a spark of hope appears as he meets Veronica. She claims that the result of the contest is evident, and that further beating the boy would just inflict extra anguish. Bode tries to excuse himself, arguing that Will is a healer and can just heal himself. Veronica defends our hero, noting that he has no magic power left, as he poured everything into the duels he recently fought. Angrily, Bode attempts to assault again, thinking Veronica merely lacks the courage to follow through. Veronica swiftly charges her sword, and the two lunge at each other to strike. Suddenly the headmaster appears, putting an end to the quarrel. He stands between them, keeping Bode from advancing, and apologizes to Veronica for not addressing the matter before. He declares the end of the selection exam and instructs everyone to depart the premises. As the students begin to disperse, our guy tries to heal himself, but fails, having fully run out of mana. Veronica lifts Will into her arms, assuring him that he performed well. She advises him to rest and not strain his limitations, but these assurances aren't enough for him. The next day he passes around the school, thinking about the contrasting power. It still confuses him how mankind could have ceased to exist, even with such strong people around, and so he determines to achieve more and more strength. Will enters the room, and the headmaster is glad to see him, observing that his injuries have healed greatly. Our boy explains that as his mana returned, the mending was virtually instant. The headmaster expects that he would have no issue with outdoor training, which surprises the protagonist. He then continues, saying that since Will took first position in the selection, he passed. Along with him, Sirius and Erica have also passed. Will demands an explanation. As Bode previously indicated that everyone had failed, the headmaster reveals that this happens every year to make the pupils believe they are in a crisis, bringing out their earnestness, but some are finally cleared. Since field training carried tremendous danger, Bode had to put on an act as a teacher, and while severe, it fulfilled its purpose. In his past existence, Bode was continuously on the front lines for mankind, and was one of the heroes who tried to save humanity from extinction. The headmaster then urges the protagonist to establish a team with students from other schools as an attacker, so he can accept actual monster subjugation requests. This makes Will realize that this will be the first time he meets monsters, the same monsters that were the direct cause of humanity's extinction in his prior life. Creatures who possess magical power are known as monsters, yet not all monsters are inherently threatening to humanity. Some may attack people, but frequently only for the sake of their own survival. If their ecological behavior had been properly investigated, they could have been employed as neighbor species rather than considered as enemies. However, 2 years from now, the world is destined to change under the power of the Red Moon. Monsters exposed to the Red Moon will become savage, and different species of super monsters will begin to join with a single objective, to wipe out civilization totally. Then, 2 years after that tragedy, the Demon King himself will descend upon the world. This series of events will position humanity at a complete disadvantage, forcing nations to collapse and countless individuals to perish. Attack wizards will be demanded on the battlefield, but because the situation will be uncontrollable, they will continue to lose their lives alongside the knights. Even healing wizards will be murdered if the front lines fall, leaving no support for the injured. By the time the protagonist dies in his previous existence, scarcely any humans remain who are capable of combat. If humans continue living without changing anything, humanity will no longer be able to live. He cannot allow such a disaster to happen again. He promises to strengthen himself beyond anyone in his former life, so that he can resist the huge monster invasion. More than that, he wants to find the true cause behind the Red Moon that drove the monsters into frenzy, aiming to destroy the source of the calamity itself. The headmaster recognizes the dedication mirrored in his eyes and is highly pleased. He thinks Will's behavior promising and worries whether the teachers are being careful enough with the approaching field training. The headmaster assures him that sufficient measures are in place. However, he makes it plain that he especially wishes to promote Will's growth. Later, while standing outside the college with Veronica, Bode approaches the protagonist. As Will strives to convey that he knows the rationale behind Bode's actions, Bode once again rants at him and goes away. Still, before departing, he tells Will to do his best during the training. Then, just before he turns away, he gently thanks him for treating Sirius. Sirius, who had been standing behind him, also moves forward and praises Will. He thinks that now he may concentrate on his flaws and become stronger than ever. As long as he survives, he knows he may finally exact his retribution, and this time it will not evaporate into smoke. The protagonist inspires him to grow even stronger, and the two of them bump their fists together in unspoken agreement. To Will, it feels like an advantage that more experienced attack mages are beginning to arrive, as they will be useful partners in the impending battles against the monsters. Soon later, they depart in a carriage. After some time passes, they are notified that the Dunkel Forest is coming, and that the training instructions will be reviewed shortly. Veronica reveals that they will be fighting goblins as part of a requested mission within the Dunkel Forest. She proceeds to guide 3 students from Schwartz, Heilig, and Gilbert. Then she turns to Will, informing him that he will be creating a 4-person party, supported by a teacher from one of the academies. Erica asks whether the party members have already been determined, and Veronica reassures her that she will be in the same party as her. Even though Erica finds Veronica terrifying, she still considers it far better than being matched with a complete stranger. After some time, they are informed that they have arrived. As they climb out of the carriage, Veronica realizes that the students from Gilbert have already reached the place. The protagonist recalls that in his prior life, he did not have many acquaintances or ties. Suddenly, a female runs up to Will and hugs him firmly, stating that she has been dying to meet him. The protagonist panics, entirely uncertain about who she might be. She promptly identifies herself as Marie Goldgrand, the head of Schwartz Academia and the granddaughter of Alnarum Goldgrand. The hero is left absolutely astonished by her introduction, as he vividly remembers her from his prior existence. He never expected to meet the girl he had once treated at the principal's house, certainly not here in the forest. Seeing her again makes him wonder how she has been doing, and she swiftly reassures him that she has been doing just well. Almost immediately she begins apologizing, explaining that she was never able to fully thank him back then. He shakes it off nonchalantly, telling her it was nothing, but she maintains that she wants to reciprocate the favor by doing something for him. She then adds that she had no gift for magic at all, so instead she enrolled in Gilbert Academy and devoted herself to learning swordsmanship. Because of her relentless effort, she ended up being the top-ranked student in the Academy's selection exam. She giggles when she observes how astonished the protagonist looks. He is sincerely moved by her achievement, for only a few months ago she had been bedridden, and yet in such a short space of time, she managed to reach the very top. Taking his hand, she informs him that they have been placed in the same party because of their different talents, and that she will try her best to prove herself valuable to him. At that moment, he fully understood what the principal truly meant when he spoke about taking care of her. Before he can linger on it any longer, she abruptly drags him along to welcome the students who have just arrived from Heilig. Watching from the side, Veronica and Erica are shocked by how cheerful and amicable the two of them seem together. Outside the carriage from Heilig, Marie wonders whether Olin and Turf are inside. Olin soon begins to walk out, gently indicating that there is no need to rush. He happily greets everyone, revealing himself as the teacher assigned to their party. Olin is a teacher at Heilig Academia, and in Will's prior incarnation, Olin had been the finest healing magician of his era. Realizing that he is now in the same party as him fills Will with genuine satisfaction. After then, Turf climbs out of the carriage as well, and Marie introduces herself to him. However, Turf freezes as he discovers the two of them holding hands. Naturally, he asks for an introduction to the protagonist. Will introduces himself, and Turf instantly believes that he must be an attack mage. Olin then informs the kids that they are free to do whatever they want, and that he will simply keep a watch on them. This easygoing demeanor surprises all of the kids. Will walks over to Olin and asks if he may call him master, and Will says that he himself uses healing magic, but has never had a proper tutor to help him practice and refine it. He then asks if Olin would be willing to teach him. Olin adds that he has heard about Will before, and quickly agrees to teach him some healing magic. Marie rushes after them, screaming that she should be able to call Olin master as well, if Will is going to do so. From the side, Veronica sees how nicely the party seems to be getting along. Later, when the subjugation assignment is assigned, each party is directed to operate utilizing a hut as their base. The region where goblins have been reported sits far into the forest, so Olin, Marie, and Will decide to journey there immediately. Meanwhile, Turf, the healing wizard, is commanded to stay behind at the base, avoiding the front lines in accordance with ancient protocol. As they travel near the goblin spawning region, Marie questions whether Will is truly solely going to operate as a healing mage on the front lines. He reacts gently, asking her not to worry about him. He says that he will act as the group's supervisor instead, enabling them to battle freely while he maintains a careful eye on everything. Taking his statement seriously, the two of them accept that the supervisor has no stringent regulations. They instantly begin hunting the goblins. In a single fast motion, Marie takes down a big group of goblins all at once. The protagonist can hardly believe what he is seeing, considering that only a few months previously she had been entirely bedridden. In the next scene, the blonde female Marie chops down multiple goblins with tremendous sword strokes. Seeing her, our hero Will becomes surprised and finds she is capable of clearing the area on her own. However, other goblins suddenly begin to appear as well. Seeing the situation, His tutor, Ren, observes that while the blonde girl excels at storming forward, she struggles when outnumbered. He then instructs our hero to support her in the fight, to which the hero gets excited, as it has been a long time since he has faced monsters. Activating his abilities, he leaps forward and starts chopping down goblins fast. After overcoming them with considerable effort, he thinks about the knife provided to him by Professor Venerica, the white-haired instructor, noting its amazing sharpness and how much it aided throughout the fight. The blonde also gets surprised at Will's expertise, and the mentor informs them that their duty for the day is over, so they should return. At that point, the blonde girl discovers her body seems considerably lighter than before. The hero reveals that this is due to the mentor's healing power. He discovers that the mentor's true strength resides in his recovery magic, which is so effortless that it often goes unnoticed. Though the world may not recognize it, he believes that his master is the greatest healer in this world. At night, they return to their rest house. A child named Turf feels happy to see them, noting that no one was hurt during today's trip. The blonde girl says she realizes that their tutor is a good healer, but questions why he also seems so knowledgeable about frontline warfare. The mentor adds that the front lines are where most of the injured are discovered, and by treating patients there, he naturally learns practical knowledge over time. Turf adds that the mentor constantly travels between several locales, which is why he rarely gives regular classes. Hearing this, the hero thinks that the mentor never avoids danger when it comes to protecting lives. He recognizes that losing someone like him would be a big loss to humanity. He also knows that there is still time before the future occurrence where the mentor dies. But to reverse that fate, the hero decides that he will not let it happen again in this life. As they spend a pleasant evening inside the house, a party of goblins gathers in a secluded spot, preparing their next move to spread greater damage. After that, the hero and his company venture out once again for a goblin subjugation operation. They use what they learned from prior battles, and their teamwork slowly improves. However, during one regular raid, Mentor Ren abruptly tells everyone to return home. The hero feels bewildered by this option, as they have not encountered or defeated a single enemy that day. The mentor then emphasizes that goblins are fiercely territorial. If outsiders reach their region, they usually attack quickly, exactly like in previous days. But despite traveling this far, they have not spotted a single goblin, which signals something is awry. He decides that they should retreat and regroup with other parties. The blonde girl reminds out that Professor Venerica's squad has a base nearby, so they can proceed there for safety. After some time, they arrive at the site where the other party is staying. To their horror, they find our hero's classmate Erica, bound up with ropes. Seeing this, the blonde rushes forward to save her, but as soon as she moves ahead, she abruptly falls into a secret pit trap laid on the ground. At that moment, many arrows launch toward the mentor, but our hero deflects all of them instantly. He then notices that a big number of goblins have surrounded them to attack. The blonde girl also manages to get out of the pit, and both of them ready to fight back. However, the hero thinks about why this all is happening. Monster activity like this is expected to increase just after the red moon, which is still 2 years away. Seeing the situation getting worse, he activates his power and creates several wooden golems. He advises Marie not to engage from the front and instead attack from behind. While the golems fend off the goblins, she finds an opportunity and delivers a powerful cut across the ground, to which several goblins get defeated instantaneously. And the ones that try to approach her, our hero cuts them away. Seeing their teamwork, the mentor feels good and moves to rescue Erica, but as he advances further, a massive boss monster suddenly pops out from beneath the ground to attack him. Seeing this, the hero feels anxious as he cannot allow his mentor to die that way. But to his surprise, when the monster hits, the mentor dodges it easily. Getting the opportunity, he places a magic spell on the creature's back, causing it to collapse instantly. The hero wonders how he has managed to do that, to which the mentor answers that he learned this movement from the hero himself. However, he clarifies that he just put the monster to sleep as he is a healer and does not battle to damage adversaries. After that, they hurriedly transport the hero's classmate to a safe spot while departing the goblin's land. The mentor applies healing magic on her, and she quickly regains consciousness. Our hero then asks what happened and why she was alone. Erica reveals that the previous day's assignment went smoothly, but things often go awry when she lets her guard down. When she woke up that morning, Professor Venerica was gone, leaving behind a note telling her to keep alert in the region. While she was debating the problem with her two companions, they told her to go and seek for the professor. She adds that as soon as she approached the woodland, she felt a delicious smell, which caused her to lose consciousness. Hearing the account, the mentor concludes that the goblins likely used a sleeping drug on her. He also feels scared, as it seems the goblins are cooperating with an ogre, which is quite odd. However, he adds there is no time to analyze the problem further. They must first head to Erika's base and reconnect with her two comrades. After some time, they arrive at the base, but realize it has been entirely destroyed. The blonde girl thinks about how this could happen, considering goblins are quite territorial and typically do not leave their own region. This indicates a base outside their region should have been safe. Seeing this, the hero concludes that this is a concerted and proactive strike against mankind, a behavior generally observed only after the Red Moon occurrence. His instructor then utilizes his ability to perceive the surroundings and discovers that the two friends have already fled somewhere. He tells the group to break up, as he himself will go and hunt for them, while the hero and the girls will proceed toward the boy turf and leave the jungle. The hero agrees to the plan, and when they get to the rest home, they feel happy to see that the youngster is safe and preparing supper for them. Will assures him that they will explain everything later since they need to leave the location immediately. However, when they venture outside the home, they become surprised to see the same ogre standing there, accompanied by a huge goblin army. Seeing this, the hero informs the girls that the three of them must fight and vanquish the monsters now, as he feels they are capable of winning this battle. He urges the blonde girl not to push too far forward as before, as she only has to focus on landing conventional strikes. He then summons a wooden golem again, using his magic, and commands his classmate to stop the goblins with her fire assaults. Following his orders, she releases flames that hold most of the goblins in place for a brief time. However, our hero realizes that the ogre is still able to pass across the fire without any issue, to which he directs the golem to act. When the golem grips the ogre, the blonde girl gains an opening and executes a strong sword slash, to which the monster collapses back. Doing this, she feels good as their partnership is functioning nicely. But to their surprise, the monster starts regenerating its body anew. Will recognizes that repeated attacks will not be enough to defeat it. He recognizes they need a new plan to bring this beast down. As he is contemplating about their next move, the ogre suddenly throws a goblin at him, but he blocks the attack and slashes the goblin down instantaneously. The blonde girl also throws back numerous goblins and screams out that she would follow the hero's directions carefully. Hearing this, our hero recognizes that with Erika controlling the goblin army and the blonde girl helping from the front, he only needs to focus on the ogre. Leaping at the beast, the hero strikes its body, at which the monster gets angry, but he gets an opening and performs his life rampage magic on the ogre's back. Because of this blow, the ogre's body explodes, and it gets defeated instantaneously. Seeing this, the hero notices that the monster can no longer regenerate, and now only the goblin army is left to handle. After some time, they eventually kill off the remaining goblins and feel proud of their hard work. However, the hero still wonders about the locations of the other squads. Suddenly, he spots a tornado in the distance and knows that Sirius, the tornado child, is making it. The hero decides that following it will bring them to the other teams. After considerable struggle, they reach a site where the tornado boy and the other teams have already defeated additional goblins. The strongest teacher then asks about the hero's mentor Ren. Just then the mentor enters with the two kids who had gone AWOL earlier. The hero feels happy to see him, and the mentor also congratulates him on beating the monster without incurring any injuries. The strongest instructor expresses satisfaction that everyone is okay, but wonders about Professor Venerika's location. He says they cannot leave the area till she returns. The mentor offers to stay behind and watch over the other pupils, advising that those capable of managing themselves should go search for her. Hearing this, the strongest teacher offers the duty to Sirius and our hero, as they are both powerful enough to take it on. Entering the wilderness, the hero strengthens his hearing and soon locates Professor Venerika, who is fully unharmed. However, he becomes surprised to see a red stone in her palm, the same stone associated to the Red Moon. The professor wonders about what he is doing here. The hero says that he came to find her because the monsters in the region went insane, and they need to flee soon. She agrees with him, but he questions about why she is clutching this stone. She apologizes to him, saying she cannot explain just now, but assures him that she is not doing anything wrong. After that, they return to their companions united, and the group proceeds back to their academy. The next day, the hero wonders whether the professor is connected to the Red Moon, but he understands that he can't question her, as she was his trustworthy companion in his former life. While he is considering this, he notices Professor Venerika discussing with a school senior about something significant. Hiding close, he notices that she is requesting leave for a personal reason. When she goes, the the hero recognizes that her axe must be tied to the red moon. To find out the truth, he decides to follow her and observe what she does next. After discreetly following her for some time, the hero finally arrives in a town. He thinks he is merely doing this to cleanse Professor Venerika's name. Looking around, he recalls that in his previous existence, after graduating from the Healing Academy, monster activity had already become a serious issue, and he was deployed to conflicts across numerous locations. He is confident he had visited this exact town earlier. At that moment, he spots Professor Venerika buying honey bread from a shop. Seeing this, he recalls a memory from his prior life, when he once shared this identical bread with her. Back then, he had remarked that he was from the countryside and rarely got to eat such delicacies. But the professor, born into a merchant family in the city, often enjoyed it. She explains that she always stops at a bakery whenever she sees one, as a personal habit. She remarks that she never knows when her life might end, thus she wants to appreciate every moment. She then asks him whether if anything serious ever happened to her, he would protect her, to which the hero confirms. Recalling those events, the hero understands that he once pledged to stay by her side, yet in the end, he failed to protect her. However, in this existence, he resolves to change that fate, and for that he must find the truth about her axe. While pursuing her, he observes the professor enter into a foreign church. The hero activates his presence concealment talent again to remain unseen, and follows her inside as well. Inside the chapel, she encounters a purple-haired thug, who informs her that she has been called here for an important matter. He asks her to provide the object they originally discussed, and the professor hands over the identical red stone. Seeing this, the thug gets amazed, claiming that with this, their church's long-awaited goal will soon be achieved, as they approach closer to the red moon once more. Hearing this, the hero recognizes that the problem is certainly tied to the red moon. However, at that moment his camouflage skill wears off. Because of this, a water dragon senses his existence and lunges at him to attack. However, the professor leaps in front of the hero and saves him from the onslaught. The purple-haired thug adds he had expressly instructed her to come alone. Wondering why she brought the youngster with her, he feels disappointed, claiming he sincerely believes she might become a new member of their order. The lecturer explains that the hero's being here is merely a coincidence. The thug then states that if they kill Will here, the order will still accept her without question. However, she refuses to join them and explains that she merely came to investigate the problem. Hearing this, the hero is bewildered about what is going on here. The professor then reveals that on the day she left the base, she detected something peculiar in the forest. There, she found a berserk creature and a crimson stone. When she poured magic into the stone, it began to glow red, and this identical thug suddenly appeared. He told her that if she wants to learn the truth about the stone and their identities, she must accept two conditions. First, she must keep the red stone shining with light, since they will use it to test her skill. Second, she must tell no one about this affair, and follow them to a specific area to verify her reliability. The professor then notes that this is why she sought to infiltrate as an undercover investigator, to uncover the identity of the man and his organization. Hearing this, the hero feels pleased, recognizing that she is not a nasty person. The thug then alleges that her earlier statement about joining the order was a lie. He throws the red stone into the water, causing several water dragons to turn berserk and prepare to attack. Seeing the situation getting worse, the hero claims he can easily handle half of them. However, the professor lunges forward and cuts down all the dragons' heads in a single strike. But to her surprise, the dragons start regenerating, since they are alive, despite the horrific wounds. Seeing this, the hero leaps at one of the dragons and hits it with his blade. Doing this, he finds something peculiar, that the dragon's body feels abnormally soft. Realizing something is fishy, he tells the professor to keep back, as he is going to try something. Activating his physical augmentation skill, Will pulls back the dragon, to which the creature exposes its real form quickly. Actually, the dragons were not real, they were just legs of a giant octopus-like monster who was assaulting them from a hidden position. At that moment, as the thug discovers that the true monster has been exposed, he adds that he has to step into the combat by himself. This is why he pulls out a powerful spear to assault them. The hero tells the professor to handle the octopus monster, stating that her magic sword will be significantly more effective against its soft body. When she doesn't appear to agree, he applies his physical enhancement skill on her, and reassures her that he will return immediately after dealing with this bandit. The hero then leaps toward the bandit with incredible speed, and tries to stab him with his knife. However, the thug easily blocks the blow and strikes him with his spear, to which the hero slides back. However, the thug notices the hero has managed to give a minor scar on his face. This is why he utilizes healing magic to heal the wound instantaneously. Seeing this, Professor Venerika tells the hero that this bandit is comparable to him, someone who can both heal and fight. The thug then notes that the hero has natural talent and that he would want to introduce him to others from their organization. He asks whether he is interested in joining their order, but the hero refuses the offer, declaring that he will never become their submissive. Hearing this, the thug proclaims that if this is the case, he will have to kill the hero now. He jumps at him again to attack with his spear, but Will blocks it effortlessly. While fighting, the hero believes that there are still many things he does not comprehend, like the order, the red stone, and the nature of both healing and offensive magic. He is certain that if he can fight this thug, he can find the truth behind everything and avoid the inevitable disaster. Thinking this, he gives a hard kick, to which the bandit slides back. Seeing the hero's prowess, the thug knows that continuing like this may lead to his downfall. This is why he triggers a technique called bodily corruption, enabling his right arm to mutate into a much larger shape. The hero understands that this is far beyond normal physical enhancement or healing magic. He demands to know who taught him such skills. The thug explains that everything he has learned comes from the teachings of the order. He reveals that before joining them, he lived without direction, working as a healer in a magic unit, and just obeying orders from arrogant superiors. He feels the world is filled with individuals unworthy of being saved, and that the order provided him both purpose and power, allowing his life to finally shine. Hearing this, the hero says that what the thug is doing is utterly wrong, warning that if this continues, many innocent people would die. Saying this, the hero tries to attack again, but the thug blocks the strike fairly effortlessly. He then punches the hero with his gigantic arm, to which the hero crashes into a wall. The hero thinks about his mentor Ren, Professor Veronica, and everyone he lost in his past life. Because of those recollections, he gets up again and employs healing magic to cure his injuries. Doing this, he comments that now he will never forgive the thug and will kill him horribly. The two of them again hurl punches at each other, but the hero manages to give significant damage. Getting an opening, he delivers a strong punch to the thug's chin, to which the thug falls back and sustains some significant injuries. After then, the hero looks at Professor Veronica and discovers that she has already defeated the octopus-like monster with her sword ability. She reveals that the creature's regeneration was extraordinarily strong, which is why it took so long to put it down. The hero then gets closer to the injured thug to ask him some questions. Putting a dagger on his neck, he asks who the order is and what their true objective is. However, the thug refuses to speak, as he doesn't want to compromise his masters. In retaliation, he immediately digs the knife into his own neck and ends his own life quickly. He feels relieved for a moment, as he recognizes that he is highly loyal to his pals. But then suddenly, he gets revived, and his wounds are fully gone. Getting astonished, he wonders what had happened, as he clearly remembers the pain of dying. The hero then says that he cured him shortly after he died. Hearing this, the thug replies that such a feat is inconceivable for a conventional healer. But the hero clarifies that he is not normal and will become the greatest healer in the world in the future. He then warns that he can continue this process, like killing and healing him as many times as needed. He informs the thug that he must expose everything about the order. The thug is afraid, realizing he has no choice but to reveal the truth. However, suddenly something unusual starts occurring to his body. Seeing this, the professor tells the hero to stand aside quickly. At that point, the thug's body abruptly explodes, to which he is slain instantly. The hero tries to heal him, but finds it is futile, since his life energy has already evaporated totally. He feels awful about this, knowing they have missed their only chance to gather information. However, Professor Veronica reassures him that at least he is secure, and advises that they return to Schwartz Academy now. On the walk back, she notes that they have still learned some essential things, like the occurrence of odd happenings in the world. She says that she is delighted she joined the field training. She comments that she insisted on participating solely because she was frightened about Will. Our hero then asks her how she came up with the notion of employing still mana for attacks. She notes that she came from a merchant family, which offered her many opportunities to meet with both healers and offensive mages. She notes that she previously heard similar notions from someone when she was younger. While they are talking, she suddenly discovers a bakery and offers that they will get some bread. After spending some pleasant moments together, they return to the academy, where the hero is lightly getting reprimanded for leaving without permission. Elsewhere, a snake woman enters an office and finds that her pet snake has already killed a boy inside. By glancing at the redstone, She adds that she will execute the order's instructions at any cost and spread as much destruction as possible.